Welcome to Love and Guilt in the Anthropocene, a podcast to help people and organizations embrace the adventure of climate action. We are envisioning a world where sustainability comes naturally. Happy New Year. This is a reading from the blog, and this particular entry is called On the Edge and Clinging to Hope, Working on Sustainability in the New Year. In my climate work, I've struggled to keep from straying too far into fatalist thinking. I'm doing the same now when I look at federal elections and federal leadership, everywhere, but especially in the US. I would be remiss if I didn't say how nervous I'm feeling about the coming change in US federal leadership. I oscillate between, we got through it the first time and it encouraged a lot more local and grassroots sustainability work, to, well, democracy had a good run, 250 years is pretty old for any country. Academically, my colleagues and peers are having difficult conversations about how to expunge certain words and phrases, like climate change and equity, from our federal grant applications. Our hope is to still receive funding for such work, but to attract less negative attention from conservative White House staffers and right-wing media for doing such important work. The headlines remind me that academia is not alone in this fear. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI, with justice sometimes also thrown in the mix, seems to be taking the hardest hit. Big companies like Walmart, Ford, Harley-Davidson, John Deere, Caterpillar, and Lowe's are expunging their commitments and policies from their websites. Along with DEI retreats, greenhouse gas emissions reductions goals are also being quietly removed from company websites. For some, it is because of the legal risks of advertising programs that never came to true fruition. Recent studies are showing that those ambitious net zero targets are falling horribly flat. For other companies, it's because the politics are a little too hot. Unfortunately, it seems hotter than the warming we will all experience. I suspect for some companies, leadership is breathing a sigh of relief that they no longer have to pretend that they care for people or the planet. They can keep on extracting a profit from late-stage capitalism and maybe even get some marshmallows ready for the coming apocalypse. But that sounds a little dramatic. For other companies, they might just want to go about their business more quietly, like many of my academic colleagues are hoping to do. I hope everyone's doing the latter, but history tells me not to trust in that. I was once working with some fellow researchers to see if we could create or aggregate more information on the downstream environmental impacts of pharmaceuticals. One of the International Standards Institutes, a group called SASB, had industry-led guidance on disclosures for the biotech and pharma industry. There's a chart on the blog post if you want to see what was in there. And this chart includes what this industry concluded was important for them for reporting. The grayed out topics in the chart are likely to not be useful to investors. Because you can't see it, let me clarify. The unimportant topics include all environmental issues, data security, customer privacy, labor practices, product life cycle, business resilience, employee health and safety, etc. I don't know the process SASB and industry representatives used to determine what was important or not, but this just doesn't seem right. I mean, I'm likely an investor in some of these industries. I have index funds in my retirement account, and I'd consider a few of these pretty darn important. This all leaves me feeling a little bit lost. The federal government is unlikely to take action, and the industry players who really need to get engaged probably won't do it unless they are forced to. But then I try to breathe a bit. During the last Trump administration, many states, cities, mayors, tribal nations, and municipalities came together and made commitments anyway. California will still enforce some relatively aggressive laws that will keep certain companies relatively honest, and anyone doing business with the European Union has a lot of ESG work to do. Some U.S. states, even conservative ones, have invested enough in renewables that they can't afford to backslide into fossil fuels. Their local economies will hurt too much. For many businesses, sustainability is good for the financial bottom line. It's an investment in an inevitable shift that they can't afford to back out of, and that is wonderful. Through my consulting work, I've also had the privilege of seeing some very passionate individuals in action. It's those individuals, some laboring in tough industries for environmental social governance, who might be able to create and maintain a sustainability shift within their organizations. Some of them are in international standards setting committees, and I hope that they're able to show the importance of environmental thinking, employee health and safety, etc., through the standards they're helping to set. I'm still oscillating between hopeful and depressed, but when I keep my sustainability community in mind, I know that we will continue, even when top-down support is not there. We will find ways to plot ahead and do what's right for people and the planet. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that we do. That's it for this week, but next week I will start dropping a new podcast called So Climatic, and it's actually on a separate podcast kind of envelope, so you have to look for So Climatic and subscribe to it. But it will be a little mini series, about 10 episodes, where I interview friends and family about what it means to have a kid during the climate crisis. So if you're curious about it, go check it out, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. If you want to embrace the adventure of climate action, subscribe to our podcast and check out our Love and Guilt in the Anthropocene blog at clinicallysustainable.substack.com.